David checked his 401k the morning he retired, and for the first time in his life, the number had finally crossed into seven figures. $1 million. 30 years of maxing it out, never missing a contribution, and there it was. He thought he'd won. Here's what nobody told him. He doesn't actually own that $1 million, not all of it, because every dollar in a traditional 401k has a silent partner attached to it, and that partner is the IRS. See, you never paid tax on that money going in. That was the whole deal. Defer it, lower your taxes today, you'll pay later. And later has finally arrived. The IRS owns a slice of David's million, somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 of it. And here's the part that should stop you cold. They get to decide how big their slice is. Not today, later, on their terms. And they are about to raise the rent. I'll show you the exact moment it detonates, and it's closer than you think. But first, the reason I'm making this video. I talked to a guy recently who missed one move, and he did the math on what it cost him over his lifetime. More than $1 million in tax, gone. Not because he was reckless, because he did exactly what he was told for 30 years, and nobody warned him about the bomb. So if you've got real money in a traditional 401k or IRA, stay with me. I'm going to show you who your silent partner really is, the day their bill comes due, and the one window where you can buy them out, cheap, before they jack up the price. Let's get into it. Let's start with the lie hiding in plain sight. For 30 years, you were told the traditional 401k was a tax break. It wasn't. It was a tax delay. Every dollar David put in, he skipped the tax on. Smart at the time. He was in his peak earning years, high bracket, and deferring made sense. But that money was never his free and clear. It was a loan from the IRS, and the loan is coming due. At an interest rate they haven't told him yet. Here's the trap. David always assumed he'd be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, lower income, lower rate. That's the whole pitch. But he built a seven-figure pile of pre-tax money, and the government does not let you leave it there forever. At 73, and that's the law right now, age 73, the IRS forces you to start pulling money out, whether you need it or not. They're called required minimum distributions, RMDs, and they are the silent partners showing up to collect. The bigger your account, the bigger they force you to withdraw. David's million could mean $40,000 a year in forced income, on top of his Social Security, whether he spends it or not. And that's where the bomb goes off. Because it doesn't just raise one bill, it sets off a chain reaction. Watch what one forced withdrawal actually triggers. This is the part almost nobody sees coming. It starts with the RMD. That forced 40 grand stacks on top of everything else David has coming in, and it shoves him up into a higher tax bracket. Strike one, strike two. That higher income reaches over and makes more of his Social Security taxable. Up to 85% of his benefit can get taxed. The check he thought was mostly his, now feeding the same partner. Strike three. It triggers something called IRMAA, a surcharge that quietly jacks up his Medicare premiums, sometimes by thousands a year, just because his income crossed an invisible line. And then the cruelest one of all. When David passes, Susan doesn't just lose her husband. The next year she files as a single person. Same RMDs. Roughly half the bracket space. Her tax bill can jump overnight in the year she's grieving. They call it the widow's penalty, and the silent partner collects it without blinking. Now you're probably thinking what David thought. So what? I'll just pay the tax when it comes. Everybody pays taxes. Here's why that's the trap. You don't get to set the rate. The IRS does, and they set it later, when you have the least control. And here's the part that should really get your attention. Today's tax rates are some of the lowest in modern history, and they're scheduled to climb. The tax cuts on the books right now are set to expire, and when they do, that silent partner's cut very likely goes up. On a bill you've been stacking higher for 30 years. You're not deferring a fixed tax. You're deferring an unknown tax that's pointed in the wrong direction. So this is the bomb. Not one tax, a cascade, and it's wired to a timer set for the day you turn 73. The hard part is, by the time it detonates, your options are mostly gone. The window to diffuse it closes years earlier, which is exactly where we're going. But first, you need to understand the one thing that controls the whole machine, your tax bracket. Here's the piece that makes everything else click, and most people get it wrong their whole lives. You do not pay your tax rate on all of your income. I'll say that again, because billions of dollars in mistakes live in that sentence. Your tax brackets work like a waterfall. The first chunk of your income fills the lowest bucket, say 10%. Once that bucket's full, the next chunk spills into the 12% bucket, then 22, then 24. Each bucket only taxes the money that lands in it. So when someone says they're in the 24% bracket, they are not paying 24% on everything, only on the dollars that spilled into that top bucket. Why does this matter? Because it means there's empty space in your lower buckets. And in the right years, that empty space is the most valuable real estate in your entire financial life. Let me make it concrete. Say David and Susan are married, and in early retirement, their income only adds up to about $90,000. The top of their 22% bracket sits up around 200 grand. That means they've got roughly $110,000 of empty space, room they could fill at 22 cents on the dollar on purpose this year. Money they choose to pull out of that traditional 401k now at a rate they picked, instead of letting it explode into forced RMDs later at a far higher effective cost, dragging Social Security and Medicare down with it. That deliberate move has a name. It's called a Roth conversion, and the empty space in your brackets is the window you do it through. Quick favor, if this is making the gears turn, hit subscribe. This channel runs the numbers nobody else will run for you. No hype, no shame, just the math. Okay, here's the move itself. Here's the move the silent partner hopes you never make. A Roth conversion is simple in concept. You take money out of your traditional 401k or IRA, you pay the tax on it now, and you move it into a Roth account. And once it's in the Roth, something changes completely. It grows tax-free. You will never pay tax on it again. There are no RMDs. The IRS can't force you to touch it. And when you pass, it goes to your kids tax-free too. You just bought out your silent partner. They are gone. Forever. Now here's the timing, and this is everything. There's a stretch of years that opens up the day you stop working and slams shut at 73 when RMDs begin. In between, for a lot of people, is the lowest income window of their adult life. No paycheck yet. No forced withdrawals yet. Your brackets are wide open and empty. That's the golden window. And it is the single best time on earth to buy out your partner because you're paying their lowest possible price. And here's the objection I can already hear. But I don't want to hand the IRS a big tax bill now. I'd rather keep my money. I get it. But look closely at what's actually happening. You are not creating a new tax. You already owe this money. The partner's slice exists whether you like it or not. The only question is whether you pay it now, at a rate you control, in a year you choose, or later at a rate they control when the bomb forces your hand. You're not spending money. You're locking in a discount. And here's the multiplier most people miss. Pay that tax bill with cash from outside the account, from regular savings, and every single dollar you convert lands whole in the Roth and grows for you, tax-free for the rest of your life. Pay it from inside the conversion, and you've handed the partner a cut on the way out the door. Most people waste it. They sit on the pile, relieved they finally have it, and they let those low bracket years tick by untouched until 73 arrives and the bomb goes off at full price. Now here's the reversal almost nobody talks about, and it's the move that quietly cost that man over $1 million. The window isn't only after you retire. If you've still got a few working years left and you have room in your bracket and you have a little cash on the side, you can start buying out your partner while you're still on the payroll. Because the earlier you convert, the longer that money sits in the Roth growing tax-free and the bigger the lifetime payoff. He waited. He thought later was fine. Later cost him $1 million. Let me put real numbers on this because it gets concrete fast. David retired at 65, sitting on that $1 million, almost all of it traditional, pre-tax. He does what most people do. Nothing. He's relieved to have it. He lives off Social Security and a little here and there. and he lets the golden window slide by year after year untouched. Then 73 hits. The RMDs kick in. 40-some thousand in forced income every year, climbing as he ages. It shoves him into a higher bracket, taxes his Social Security, triggers the IRMAA surcharge on his Medicare, and when he's gone, Susan inherits the whole pre-tax pile and the widow's penalty that comes with it. The silent partner collects and collects and collects for the rest of both their lives. Now rewind and watch what Susan would have done with the same million. The day they retired, she looked at those empty brackets and went to work. Every year in the window, she converted just enough to fill her bracket to the top. No more, staying out of the higher buckets on purpose. She paid the tax with cash from their savings, not from the conversion itself, so every dollar she moved landed whole in the Roth. Year after year, she quietly drained the bomb and refilled a tax-free account. By 73, there's barely anything left to force out. No tax torpedo, no Social Security getting shredded, no IRMAA surprise. And the money that's left is Roth. Tax-free to her, tax-free to the kids. Run the two paths side by side over a full retirement, and the gap isn't small. For a couple sitting on a 7-figure pre-tax pile, the difference between letting the bomb go off and quietly defusing it in the window can land north of $1 million in lifetime tax. That's not a typo. That is the same million David thought he'd won, handed back to the silent partner, one forced withdrawal at a time, simply because nobody told him about the window. Same starting million. One of them handed the IRS a fortune. The other bought her partner out at a discount and kept it. Same pile. Two completely different endings. The only difference is that one of them used the window and one of them let it close. Here's the thing that ties it all together. For 30 years, you were rewarded for one move: defer. Lower the tax now, worry about it later. And it worked. It built the pile. But the exact instinct that built the pile is what arms the bomb. Every dollar you deferred is a dollar the silent partner gets to tax on their schedule, at their rate, at the worst possible time. The skill that got you here is the one that detonates if you don't reverse it. Retirement isn't about deferring anymore. It's about taking control back, paying the partner off on your terms in your low bracket years before they set the price for you. So here's how you diffuse it. 4 moves. Move 1, find your bracket. Before you convert a single dollar, you need to know the top of the bracket you want to fill. For a lot of retirees in the window, that's the 12% or the 22%. Convert up to that line, and not a dollar over. This is not convert everything. It's fill the empty space on purpose. Move 2, use the window. The years between the day you stop working and age 73 are the cheapest tax years you will ever get. Treat them like the asset they are. Every year you let slide by untouched is a year the silent partner keeps for free. Move 3, pay the tax from outside. When you convert, pay the tax bill with cash from a regular savings or brokerage account, not out of the conversion itself. That way the full amount lands in the Roth and grows for you, not for the IRS. Move 4, start earlier than feels comfortable. The sooner that money is in the Roth, the longer it compounds tax-free. If you've still got working years and room in your bracket, don't wait for some perfect golden period that might cost you a decade of growth. Earlier almost always wins. So what should David have done? He should have looked at that million the day he retired and seen it for what it really was. A business he co-owned with the IRS, with the partner's price about to go up. And in those quiet, low-bracket years, he should have bought them out, one bracket at a time, on his terms instead of theirs. You did the hard part. You built the pile most people never finish. Just don't hand a third of it to a silent partner you could have paid off for a fraction of what they'll take later. Find your window, buy out your partner, and make that million actually yours.